Luxury of throwing to some of the best receivers in the country. Not participating today, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, but guys like Miller Forristall, Carl Tucker at tight end are out there as well. So let's see what Mac has in store for us. There's some of that movement. Boy, that's on the money, DJ, on the move there. And again, about a third of his throws, DJ, are going to be from some sort of movement inside, outside of the pocket there. And that one, pretty good example of what he can do.
Yeah, and look, pro days can be used to try and fill in the gaps. And I think Scott talked about that a little bit earlier. But we have so much tape of him navigating within the pocket and making touch timing throws, showing you that anticipation, the accuracy. So today is about trying to see some of those things we didn't get to see a lot of. So the more we can see him on the move, outside the pocket, when not having the ability to set your feet and throw, I think that is smart that David Morris and Mac got together today to script a workout as such.
Yeah. And this workout in the workout tape will be really good to watch. But again, if you go back to game tape and you see his accuracy and his composure in those times when he's under pressure, sometimes we'll see these workouts and we'll see where a ball's maybe a little overthrown or underthrown or a little bit too wide. I don't get too caught up on that in workouts, nor do I overrate it if everything is spot on. It's what you see in game film, and again, when he's playing the actual quarterback position and about to get hit in the mouth. Hey, real quick thing that I want to talk about right there, just watching him come in and out of a huddle and being able to run a huddle. It's one of these things we talk about as scouts and evaluators and GMs and coaches now, is there's a lot of players that are now coming into the National Football League at the quarterback position that don't know how to run a huddle. And his leadership ability and his ability to bring people together, communicate, and then get people to do their jobs is pretty darn good.
I wouldn't get too hung up on the end result here today, as we've mentioned, with who he's throwing to. To me, it's again about just watching the feet. How crisp is he? We keep coming back to that word twitch. Do you see some twitch? Do you see some snap with him? And to Scott's point, he did some good things under pressure, but there just isn't a lot of it. I mean, when you go through their games, I like to sort it and watch the 3rd and 7+ throws. So everybody in the stadium knows you're throwing the football. And usually you'll see a pretty high percentage of pressure. And there just aren't a lot of examples of that. So he's shown he can do it, but it's just not to the volume that you feel totally comfortable. That's, to me, why you want to see some of that movement around today. Don't focus on the end result. Let's just see how natural and how smooth he looks doing it.
That's a good point as well. And again, snapping the ball here to Mac Jones is one of the best centers in this year's class, one of the best interior offensive linemen. Landon Dickerson, coming off a torn ACL, suffered at the tail end of Alabama's championship run.
Yeah, Rhett, I love Landon Dickerson. I mean, he, again, for a guy that came in, again, he was a graduate school or a graduate transfer, so he only spent 1 year in Tuscaloosa with the University of Alabama. And being down there and watching how teammates and players gravitated towards him and what kind of leader he was along the offensive line, very often when you get these graduate transfers, everyone knows that they're kind of hired hands and they just come in for a little while, and it's guys just making time to get themselves ready for the next level. But everyone embraced this guy, and he embraced this team and this program. And I tell you, Landon Dickerson, it's good to see him out here right now. Again, you can see the relationship between he and Mac Jones at the quarterback. They cultivated and developed a really important relationship. And again, this is another important thing that goes on. So many people get caught up in the numbers and the times and all the data that comes out of these workouts. But one of the most important things is watching the interpersonal relationships, because at the end of the day, football is about a chemistry experiment. It's either going to go right or it's going to go wrong. And when you watch players like this, Mac Jones, who really connects well with his teammates, Landon Dickerson, who connects well with his teammates, it's great to pay attention to these kind of things here.
Yeah, Dickerson had never played center in a game before 2019. Ends up this past year as the Remington Award winner as the nation's top center. Talented dude right there snapping the ball to Mac Jones. Underway in his throwing session here from Alabama's Pro Day. Rhett Lewis, Daniel Jeremiah, Scott Pioli here with you. Now let's go down to the field In Tuscaloosa, on the scene for us, James Palmer. James, what's the buzz down there as Mac is working his way through this workout?
Well, I will tell you about his center to start this off. Dickerson spent almost the entire time measurements were going through talking to Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. They developed quite a relationship of laughter during the time those measurements were going on. As you're watching Mac Jones throw these balls, it was some interesting notes that I got from him and talking to people around the program leading into this is, one, you see that deep ball there. They don't question his arm strength. They do believe it is enough at the next level. And then also something with Mac Jones that a lot of people don't talk about. They said he actually really likes the creative off-platform throws. You know, they said he can do the no-look stuff. He actually likes moving around and throwing from different platforms, and that's a big part of his preparation over the last couple of months since that national championship game was to make sure he works on all of these things that are so prominent in the NFL. When things don't go right, and it happens, for your quarterback, how are you able to go and still make plays when things aren't exactly where you want them? And we've talked so much about the competitiveness, and I think this has a really good pace to it from the pro days that I have been at, that he loves to throw the football. He's been in here, guys. I was told this story after their team banquet. He came in here with a couple of guys and said, I'd like to, throw the football around if you guys are cool with that. And they got out of their suits.
So in some ways, while I agree with Scott that he is underrated as an athlete, he's not in the same class as some of those other guys that the young quarterbacks in the league right now possess.
Another deep shot here from Mac
DJ,
Jones.
I agree.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree with that, DJ, in terms of even whatever his ceiling and best is as an athlete, it won't be at the same level. And, James, that's a terrific question that you ask, and those are the kind of questions that need to be asked in scouting rooms, right? There needs to be this contrarian angle and questions that are asked. And I would say this, I think sometimes people will get focused on the negative and trying to find out what a player can't do or where he won't go. Sure. But what I've seen in my 27 years in the league, I've seen a lot of players that have much higher ceilings and have that room for growth and just can't get it done for whatever their reasons are, whether it's their makeup, whether it's their work habits, whether it's their work ethic. Just because someone has a ceiling, a famous coach once said, you show me a person where a coach keeps on saying he has a lot of potential, I'll show you a kid that hasn't done anything. So now someone can have potential, someone can have a high ceiling, but we've seen a lot of players, particularly at the quarterback position, with incredible tools, but they just can't seem to find a way to get out of their own way. And I don't think that'll be the case with Mac, but it's a very, very fair question to ask as to where is his ceiling.
That's exactly right, Scott. And some of those teams I've talked to really have said, with Mac, the reason they have that question is they do believe he's one of the best processors coming out at the quarterback position in this draft, and the way he plays the game mentally and the work ethic that he has brought to transform his body leading into this past year, and then what he's done since the national championship to make sure that he gets the most out of himself physically as well. And I think one of the interesting parts that guys around here in the program talk about is that he understands the long game, right? And we saw that with him not moving on and waiting his time here, and he understands the long game, and that translates to the NFL as well. He is very mature in that sense, to where he understands that some things take time. He sees things a couple of steps ahead, and he has a mentality that this may happen and this may not happen right now, but I'm preparing for it. The best quote that I got from him was from David Morris, and I know, Rhett, you spoke to him as well, is productive paranoia is the term that he used, and that was from Jim Collins' book of, Good to Great, Great by Choice. He is just paranoid almost that he will not be prepared, and that's where you see those calls at the Senior Bowl coming at 2:30 in the morning. That's where you see his constant work ethic and working on installs and doing different things that whole week at the Senior Bowl. He has this almost paranoia that I think we know some of the greats around the league in the history of our game have had at the quarterback position, that they just can't prepare enough. As you see him make another throw kind of off platform and on the move is one big things that they want to show in this script today.
James, great insight there. Thanks very much. They're live for us on the field in Tuscaloosa, watching this up close and personal. And when you talk about the processing, that's where the comparison to Joe Burrow comes in from those that have worked closely, with Mac Jones, like David Morris. He's talking about, if we go back to last year's evaluation of Burrow and talking about one of the most elite qualities that he possessed was his ability to take it from the huddle to reading the defense to progression once the ball's snapped to execution and figuring out where the ball needs to go once it is snapped there. And talking about how elite Burrow was in that category, DJ, the comparison there with Mac is that he's not far behind in that sense. And then, the question then becomes physically, yeah, there are some differences, but how close do you see the level between a guy like Mac from the shoulders up to a guy like Burrow?
Well, we use the word quickness a lot, right? It's a very, very common scouting term. And when you talk about Joe Burrow having a quick mind, I think there's a comparison to be had there with Mac. I think Mac's got a very quick mind to be able to see things, work through progressions very quickly. But I think Joe has more quickness in his feet. I thought he had more quickness in his hands. I thought Joe Burrow's ability to really create, he made some magical plays getting away from pressure and kind of showed you what type of athlete he was. So to me, that's where you go from talking about a guy who's the first overall pick in the draft to, for me, somebody in my opinion that's a borderline first round pick. And so I think there's a little bit of distance between the two players because of that.
Watching Mac Jones' throwing session here from Alabama's Pro Day. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Rhett Lewis, Daniel Jeremiah, Scott Pioli, James Palmer down on the field for us.
You go from throwing to Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and no offense to the guys out there. They're working hard, and this has a good pace to it. But he's gone from driving a Maserati to maybe a little bit of a pickup truck here. So you can see how it'd be hard to gauge with your accuracy.
And Scott, I've been told, that some of the most impressive throws that Mac can make is in that intermediate range. Those digs, you see a corner, want a deep out or a deep curl, comeback route. Some of the best throws that he makes are in that intermediate range. What have you seen from Mac and where he's at his best when unleashing the football?
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But he's done a nice job with the touch and the deep ball.
Yeah.
But again, there's a lot of very, very good quarterbacks in this league that start off early in their career going for this, where they're coached to have those high percentage throws, and the high percentage throws are in the shorter area of the field. One other thought I'm having as we're watching this live here, forgive me, Rhett, for digressing here a little bit, but I think it's important here that we're seeing something that scouts do pay attention to, is he's taking snaps both from the shotgun and from directly under center. And I can't tell you how many times we've had now where players have come out in the draft and you go through all their tape, and one of the coaches, the quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator, will say, hey, do we have any snaps with this guy taking the ball from under center? Does he know how to play from under center? Can he see the field from under the center? Because again, on that shotgun snap, that gives, when a quarterback's in that position, he can see the field a little bit better and it's a different perception, or it's a different view certainly when you're underneath center and then when you're back in the shotgun. So it's good to see, it's good for him to be showing scouts here and all the personnel directors that he can do both. But I didn't want to lose that thought. But to your point, Rhett, he is very good in the short and intermediate shallow crosses. But again, I think what we were able to see this year, especially early on, is when he has to throw the deep ball, he can certainly throw the deep ball as well.
All right, you're watching Mac Jones' throwing session at Alabama's Pro Day here on this Path to the Draft Pro Day special presented by Verizon. Back with more from Mac. Session for Mac Jones. Daniel Jeremiah's number 34th ranked overall prospect and the number 5 quarterback out there amongst a talented crop of quarterback prospects this year. Mac Jones working through his throwing session here without the services, DJ, of Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, his all-star wide receiver tandem this past season at Alabama. How do we kind of put that into perspective when evaluating this pro day workout?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to get hung up on the end result of these throws, Rhett, because of some of the stuff that you just mentioned there with the guys he's throwing to. As you see now, they're just working on the end of the route, so they don't completely gas these guys out.
Yeah.
But again, just watching the movement, you're watching how much twitch and horsepower he can generate, those types of things. So the supporting cast becomes irrelevant in that evaluation. But it brings up a good point. In this environment, which we are right now, you're only allowed 3 guys per team at these pro days. So the fact that Alabama is having multiple pro days, which I think is great, it gives the guys that weren't ready to go today an opportunity to participate in the later pro day. But it also gives these 32 teams a chance to get more guys from their organization, be it a quarterback coach, a coordinator, a GM, a head coach. It gives you a chance to get some more eyeballs on these players live and in person, and especially in a year where your scouts weren't able to be on campus during the fall. So the multiple pro day thing, I don't know why every college is not doing that, because it just creates more opportunity for your guys.
Great point. Per NFL rules this year,
DJ,
only 3 representatives from each team allowed on campus for a given pro day. Scott, I'd love to get your thoughts on how that kind of factors into the mix for evaluations in this pre-draft process in this unique year.
Well, I don't know about pre-draft evaluations, but to me, multiple trips to Tuscaloosa is definitely in the cards and something I love, because I don't know if you guys have ever been to Dreamland Barbecue in Tuscaloosa, which is one of the most unbelievable eateries on the planet. So
Good to know.
the more trips that scouts can get to Dreamland Barbecue, the happier they're going to be. Trust me. But no,
Scott,
I agree
Scott,
with DJ on the series. Yeah, DJ.
I've never been more insulted. Wow. That you would think during my NFL scouting career that I haven't been to Dreamland Barbecue. That hurts, man. That gets right to my core.
Well, DJ, I believe I've seen you at the Dreamland location, not only in Tuscaloosa, but the one in Mobile. I believe I have seen it. There's probably photographic evidence of you throwing down some of that appetizer of
the Wonder Bread,
the white bread and the sauce. Exactly right, the barbecue sauce. Absolutely.
Good news, James Palmer, guys, can back up your evaluation. He went last night for dinner. So he's with us today. Just texted me that they're watching this workout for Mac Jones field level for us. And working in through these throws here for Mac Jones, starting to get towards the tail end of this workout. That was Carl Tucker, tight end for the Crimson Tide, who came over from UNC as a grad transfer.
It's a nice ball.
Yeah. And look, they thought the deep ball today, Scott, would surprise some people. His effectiveness at pushing the ball down the field, talking about Mac here, would surprise some scouts and evaluators in attendance there today.
Yeah, and I think DJ brought up a great point earlier. It's not just the end result of the ball and where it lands and the accuracy of it. What we're talking about here and what you really want to look at, and a lot of the tape is going to be looked at from this perspective right here, is seeing his throwing motion, seeing his foot placement, seeing what part of his body he's using to get the ball deep. How much is his core? How much is his hips? How much is his arms? How much is he using his legs? And to me, DJ nailed it so well earlier when he talks about he's consistently used the word twitch, and people don't necessarily think about that word a whole lot as they're evaluating quarterbacks, unless you're in the inner workings of a team, because you want to see, we always hear about quick release, right? How quickly can he see it, make the decision, and then get the ball out quick? Is it an elongated motion? Is the twitch there for him to deliver the ball either with distance and or velocity? Obviously, we're paying attention to the accuracy, but we want to see what kind of twitch is in the body, in the arm, in the hand and wrist to get the ball out quickly with some snap and not too much motion from the rest of the body.
A little quick slant there from Mac Jones to Miller Forrestall, his tight end this year at Alabama, kind of picking up the pace here a little bit with some of this kind of read option stuff right there. DJ, you thought that was one of the strengths of his game. We've certainly seen that more and more now in the NFL.
Yeah, that is his wheelhouse. Ride the back and then, again, show me some quick hands, get that ball right out and throw slants. They throw more slants at Alabama than any place on earth, and they wear people out with that. And he is very, very accurate, putting that ball on the upfield shoulder so these guys can run after the catch. This is, again, where he's very comfortable.
as a quick processor mentally, the other thing he does, DJ, you bring up the quick slants.